11 years later, more than a decade after moving to Denmark from Argentina, I finally exchanged my driver's license to a Danish one. And it took this long because the exchange process is a mess. It's long, it's complicated, and in my case, it was even impacted by the COVID lockdowns. In this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about getting your own Danish driver's license with excruciating detail. Just note, this video is for exchanges only. If you're getting your first driver's license in Denmark or your whole life, this video might not be fully relevant. First, the basics. If you live permanently in Denmark, you need to have a Danish driver's license. Technically, you can drive with your foreign license in Denmark, but only for the first 180 days after you moved in. After that, you need to convert your old license into a Danish license. There's only one exception here, and that is if you have a license from a European Union country or Iceland or Norway that was issued before you moved in to Denmark. Everyone else otherwise needs to exchange their, like for example, US license, Argentinian license, Brazilian license, you name it, into a Danish one. The process can be going from quite easy to very complicated depending on where was your license issued. There is going to be some easy countries and there are going to be some hard countries. The easy countries include Australia, Bosnia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Israel, Japan, New Zealand, North Macedonia, Russia, Serbia, Switzerland, South Korea, Taiwan, Ukraine, Australia, US, and the UK. If you have your license issued by one of those countries, you are good to go. You're gonna be able to get the fast track approach. Not as fast as the other countries from the EU, but fast enough. Just note that the key thing here is that your license must be issued by one of those countries. It doesn't matter if you're an American citizen or if you're a Brazilian citizen, so long as your license was issued in that specific country. So you can be, for example, an Indian citizen that has a license from Singapore, then you're good to go. You can exchange your Singaporean license to a Danish one without having to go through the complicated process that maybe someone that has an Indian license would have to do. In short, in this case, you can exchange your license from these countries to a Danish one with minimal hassle. And the process, though, can take time, but at the end of the day, all you need is to show up in the citizen service or the border service with your foreign license, which again must have been issued before you moved into Denmark, a valid passport, a valid photo, your CPR card or residence permit, and then a medical certificate from your doctor. So you'll have received a medical certificate in a closed envelope from your doctor, which basically like you need to hand in to the citizen service. This certificate must be newer than 6 months. And again, you just need to go to the doctor, basically tell them that you need this like medical certificate for the driver's license. They will do a 10-minute check with you and then charge you 500 krona or something like that, and then you're off your go, finish the process. Very expensive for 10 minutes, but again, that's the way it is in Denmark. If your driver's license is not written in the Latin alphabet, you need to bring a Danish, English or French translation of the driver's license. But again, that's pretty much the only thing you need to know. And then you need to pay a fee, which is as of today 280 krona, and that's basically it. If you have stayed in Denmark for less than 180 days, you can also get a temporary driver license in the meantime, else you just need to wait until their application is processed. The whole process can take from just a few weeks to a few months, or even I heard sometimes up to a year. So just be aware of. It will depend on how long this is because the Danish police will need to validate the legality on how real your driver license is. In some cases, again, it goes really fast. In some cases, it might take more time. For the not so easy countries, like it was in my case in Argentina, or basically any country that is not from the EU, not Iceland, not Norway, and is not on that list, what you need to do is a bit more complicated. You need to do basically all what I have been telling you up to now, but you also, on top of that, need to pass 2 exams. You need to pass the driving theory exam and the driving practice exam, which is both a pain because it takes time and it can be very expensive. If you have applied for, again, this exchange of the license within 6 months of having moved to Denmark, you will also get a temporary driver license from the government, meaning this is going to be a piece of paper where it says that you're in the process of changing your license, and in the meantime you can use this to drive in Denmark but also in the Scandinavian countries. You can't go, for example, to Germany or to Russia and drive with this, but in the meantime it's better than nothing. But again, crucial is that you need to have been starting this process within 6 months of you having moved into Denmark. If the 6 months have passed, this option will not be available anymore. Now let's look into the exams. First, the theory exam. The theory exam is hard. I mean, you can't really wing it. You need to study well for it. The main motivation here for the exam is that the first time you do the exam is going to be free, or at least it's included into this, 280 krona exchange fee. But if you fail the exam, for each new attempt, that would cost you, as of today, 890 krona. And that's a lot of money for, again, failing an exam. So the exam is 25 questions. You need to pass, in order to pass the exam, you need to have at least 20 of these questions correct. If you have more than 5 mistakes, off you go, you need to do the exam again. The way it works in the exam is that they're playing a video in the background and you're going to be looking at the picture and then hearing something, or hearing the questions and hearing the explanation, and then you're asked one question at a time to select what is the correct option. It's in a multiple choice. And the key thing here is that there are no repetitions, so you need to be fast. Basically, you get a question, you'll hear the different parts of the question, and you need to quickly make a decision. You can't really wait for a repetition or ask for a clarification. That's basically the way it works. The questions can be tricky. I was really struggling on this because I'm a bit of a boxed guy, where 1 + 1 for me is always equals 2 or stuff like that. But in these exams, you need to try to understand what they're looking for. It's not always so like, if it's like this, it's like that. Yes, a traffic exam will always mean the same, but they put you in situations where what you need to be especially aware of. And sometimes it can be a bit slippery. For context, the way it worked is that I prepared with something called Probe.dk. There are multiple websites as well, and multiple services you can use to prepare for the exam. But the idea here was that I took a few weeks for sure, even up to a month of continuously doing these exams. There's some video lessons you can do, which are of course important, but the way you really prepare for this is doing exams until you can be almost sure that you're gonna pass. What I did as well is that each time I was doing an exam and failed, or was some kind of tricky question, I was taking notes of them and leaving them down in a long markdown file. And I just shared some of the notes here because it might be interesting for you. Not that these things are especially important, but just to show you the type of questions they're asking. So for example, if a fire truck has blue lights or the lights are blinking, be aware of pedestrians, because the fireman could just suddenly come out of the fire truck. So you should be especially aware of that. If a car is overtaking someone on a wide road, even if there are the checked markings, you should be especially aware of the car, even though it's far. Keep an eye on the brake lights in the motorway type of questions, in the sense that when you're looking at the picture, if you have not noticed that the car in front of you has the red lights, you might be into trouble. And there's lots of stuff like that. Again, do the exams, practice online before you take the exam, because again, you don't want to be paying 890 krona again and again and again. Better to just nail it the first time. You get the pass-fail note in the moment. And for example, in my case, I had failed 3 or 4 out of the questions. So I had errors in 3 out of 4 of the questions, but at least I passed, and I was told in the moment, hey Mario, you're good. And I was like, yay, nice. Which takes us to the practice exam. And the practice exam, in short, what you do is that you drive around the streets and highways and so on for between 30 to 50 minutes. Sometimes it can be a bit less, with the examiner sitting with you in the car to your right. And the examiner will tell you, go here, go there, now do this, park, do a U-turn, and so on. If you know how to drive already, and for example, I drove for over 15 years or across my life before having to do the exam, you're gonna be okay for most of the things, but there's still some things you need to be aware of, because again, what the examiner is gonna be looking for is gonna be specific to Denmark, or specific rules that even if you are the best driver in the world, if you have not learned about these rules, you will still likely fail. Few concrete things, or the things they care about, or what they're obsessed about in Denmark, is that when you're looking into changing lanes or things like that, you need to, of course, look at your mirrors, but at the same time, you need to do this blind spot check, which is basically putting your neck like this and checking things like that, which you need to exaggerate and show that you're doing it with gusto during the exam. And then, of course, you need to be super careful with the traffic signs, the speed limits. Like if you're entering a school area, just be careful, look at the signs, lower the speed, and even tell the examiner, hey, I have seen the sign, I'll lower the speed. For most people, my recommendation is that you take 2 to 3 classes with a teacher before you take the exam. Again, even if you know how to drive, because at the end of the day, the teacher will be telling you what the examiners are looking for, what are the things that really matter to them, drill you and make you practice all those type of things. So when it comes to the exam, you nailed it in the first try. Some of the benefits I saw with using a teacher is that they will take you driving in the same area you will have exam, so you'll be sharp on where the signs are, what the examiner is looking for in that specific area. They will call you out when you make even small mistakes and help you correct in the moment. For example, I learned that if I was going in the highway, if I was going under the speed limit, it might be considered too slow. And because of that, get a penalty during the exam. And I was like, whoa, really? Even though I was like going fast enough? No, you're going under the speed limit, you need to speed up. And again, this will depend on the examiner or something, but at least in this case, I just follow what this teacher tells me, so I make sure to nail it in the exam. That teacher will also help you prepare for some technical questions you might be asked, or you will be asked actually before the exam kicks off. Like the examiner will be asking you, for example, to check the oil in the car, and you need to open the thing in the front and take the oil, how brakes work. I had no idea about these things, even though I have been driving for many years, so it was good to review that with the examiner. Also, the driving school will loan you the car for the exam, which is again pretty crucial because no car you can do the exam. So it's pretty clear on that. And then the practical exam will cost you at least 1,500 krona per each time you do. So the first time, and then again, if you need to do it again, and it will be up to 2,000 potentially if you need a translator, which again for most people you'll need. I think it's even a law that you're obliged to use a translator even if you speak Danish, so long as you're a foreigner. So again, know these things happen, and again my take is better pass the first time. The driving lessons would normally cost you between 400 and 500 krona for 45 minutes. It's better to do a few more lessons and you pay those 500 krona instead of having to fail the exam and pay another 2,000 each time. Again, my recommendation. What I did, for example, myself, I took one lesson, then I asked the examiner, hey, am I ready? And he was like, no, you need to do 1 or 2 more lessons. We did that, we drew, I actually asked him, hey, where do I need more effort, where I need to work on? We worked on this together, and again, after 2 or 3 classes, he was like, yeah, you're gonna nail it. And so I did. So once you finish the exam, you'll get pass or fail feedback in the spot. And if you passed, you will get right then and there a temporary license. Again, only applicable for Scandinavia, but again, the second you're out of the car, you'll have a license you can start using in Denmark and in the other countries in Scandinavia. And then you'll get a permanent license in around a month, plus or minus a few weeks, depending on the time of the year. And you'll get that via post. I just procrastinated on this so much because I needed to drive in Denmark. I famously don't have a car for all this time, but also because I was hoping Argentina, my country, would be included in this list, as Chile was and Brazil was, but 10 years later that never happened, and with kids in the family now and so on, I thought like, hey, better to sort it out. And my take to you as well, yeah, it's a hassle, but instead of waiting for your country to be added to the list, just better to get it done. So hope this was helpful. I'll also share a link in the video description to the driving school I have used. The teacher was extremely helpful in my case, and it was a good car. I can of course recommend them if you want to do the practice exam with them. Thanks for watching.